This is the plaintiff, Cleo Ingram. She says she's a child care provider who took care of the defendant's kids, fed them out of her own pocket, and even took them on trips on her dime. The defendant owes her money for 11 days of care and plans on getting her money here today, so she's suing the deadbeat mom for the $473 she's owed. This is the defendant, Valerie Blackwell. She says a red flag was discovered on the plaintiff's background check. After the results came in, she pulled her kids out because one child told her she hadn't eaten any food, and the other child told her the plaintiff put her hands on her. Oh, her money? No way. She's accused of dumping out of daycare.
All parties, please raise your right hand. You see it? Come to order, please. Litigants have been sworn on.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, Cleo Ingram.
Yes.
You are suing Valerie Blackwell for $473 in babysitting services for her 4-year-old and 11-year-old.
Yes.
That, according to you, she has not paid. Tell me what's going on.
My daughter came to me and asked and told me she had someone for me to watch, a friend of hers that wanted me to watch her kids, and I agree.
Okay.
But it didn't happen at that time because she had to get stuff, in order.
What does that mean?
Well, she wasn't ready. She wasn't ready for me to
what?
babysit at the time. My daughter told me
Okay.
to babysit her kids, but I told her I'll be available. Finally, she came to me on June 27th and asked me, was I available? And I told her yes. She said as soon as she closed the case of the other babysitter, I can start that Friday.
What is she talking about, the case? You need to explain yourself. What do you mean?
Soon as she
Stop.
closed,
Go ahead. What, were you on public assistance? Is that what she's saying?
Yes.
Okay. So you had to close out the prior provider in order for her to start getting paid.
Yes.
So, but instead of waiting for her to do that, you started babysitting.
Right, because she needed someone to watch her kids while she ran to ACS. And
Was she working at the time or no?
Well, she was supposed to be doing WEP for welfare.
Which is the...
Which is a program that they give them for being on public assistance to try to get them ready for a job.
And it's, what's WEP stand for?
Work Experience Program.
Work Experience Program. So, and that means what? That you go where?
You go to HRA and you have to have a child care provider in place.
Right.
And they send you either to school or to a job program.
Okay. And that's what you were in the middle of?
Yes.
You were supposed to be in the middle of?
I was supposed to be in the middle of that.
You didn't show up?
No, I did show up.
So then
I had another child care provider who couldn't provide the proper timing for me. So I had to find someone else that was responsible.
Okay. And then you did. You found her?
Yes.
And for X number of days, it was working?
Yes.
And then the X number of days are 11 days, right?
Yes.
And then what happens after 11 days?
I was feeding them, out of my pocket and taking them on trips out of my pocket. And I was explaining to her for the past 2 weeks I was doing that. But on the third week, I was running out of funds of my own. And I couldn't provide her kids with, food every day because I did it for 2 weeks. And I'm using, my food from my kids. And I just told her that all she had to do is feed them breakfast and just bring, lunch and a snack, because that's all they need at my house. And she told me that every provider that she had fed her kids. And I said, well, I can't because I'm not on no food program. I'm using my own funds. Okay,
I'm confused because during this time, you still have benefits and the other person's not getting paid because you've stopped with the other person. So how are you paying for her before the benefits are in place? In other words, why is she going to not only take care of your kids for free, but also feed your kids?
So it wasn't for free. When I first brought the application to HRA, a red flag came up. They said they have to do a background checkup on her because she had a history of something she did in the past.
Okay, you had a prior for worthless checks?
Yeah, that's like 40 years ago. Yeah.
40 years ago.
Yes,
okay.
because I'm 57.
But that's still a red flag for them, and so it took a little longer. I got that.
Yeah, they said they have to do a background checkup, or it's going to take from 1 to 45 days. And I explained this to her.
Right.
And she said she was fine with that.
Yeah, but it didn't, because in the end they approved her, right? And they approved her after what? After a couple of weeks. They approved her pretty much right away.
Yes. I didn't get that. I didn't get
but
a
by
notification
then you had already told the caseworker, because I'm looking at the paperwork, I don't want her.
I no longer need her because on several occasions my children came to me stating that, she wasn't feeding them. She was putting her hands on them, and she was
What
no
does
longer
putting her
taking-
hands on them mean?
My 5-year-old, she's now 5. She came to me. She said, "Mommy, Miss Cleo keeps popping me." I went to her on the first occasion to talk to her because I gave her the benefit of the doubt.
Well, what does
And
popping mean?
She kept slapping her on the leg.
Okay.
I went to her and I spoke to her about it. I said, "Listen,
Don't
this
touch
is
my
not
kid.
acceptable. I understand you have to discipline children verbally or put them in a corner, but popping is unacceptable." She assured me that it will never happen again, but it did. She kept putting her hands on my 5-year-old.
Okay, what's
Then
your story on that?
That's
11-year-old
not true.
Ever?
That's
that
not
never
true.
happened?
I didn't pop her. I just tapped on her legs one time. We were in a sneaker store, and she's laying down on the things you sit on with her legs wide open. So all I did is tapped on her legs. I mean, if you
close
want to
her
call
legs?
it a pop, it wasn't hard enough for her to cry or, complain about it.
All right.
I just popped her on the leg and just said, "You got to close your legs." That's not how young ladies sit. That's why I just popped her. I just popped her that one time. It was just a little snap on the leg, since I don't hit kids.
And welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. So can the defendant not pay because of this conviction 40 years ago?
No, it's not fair.
Why?
40 years ago, it's done.
Okay, well, I don't know what the magic number is. Can the defendant not pay?
Absolutely not. It's not even admissible after 10 years, right?
Well, 40 years is a long time.
Long.
Final word.
Totally irrelevant. If she performed the services, she deserves to get paid.
Fair enough. And going inside the courtroom.
By the way, I'm also looking at the paperwork where it says that did you get dropped out of the WEP?
I got sanctioned due to going back and forth, trying to get, she gave me documentation that she was supposed to get expunged, but it didn't work out. A notarized letter stating that, she had a case in the past. I was going back and forth.
I don't know what that means. That has nothing to do with you showing up for your work program.
I
work
did
experience
actually show
program.
up because it's a stamp on.
But it says that you got like kicked out because you kept not showing up. That has nothing to do with whether you get an affidavit from her. Apparently, she got approved. She got approved like within what? A week, 2 weeks?
I didn't get notified of that approval.
Oh, I have it right here. That she got approved, but that you went in and you said, "I don't want her," which is fine. You have the right as a mother to decide, I don't like her. I'm not putting my kids in that. Kudos to you. That's no problem. The thing is, I have to decide if you still owe her money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
They gave me, the day he gave me a phone call, he didn't ask me how long was she watching my children. He just asked me, "Is Miss Ingram still your child care provider?" At the time that I got the phone call, I said, "No, sir, I no longer need her services." He said, "Thank you very much."
I know, but didn't you do the math in your head and realize she took care of my kids for 11 days? Who's going to pay that? I mean, if you don't want to pay it, then you have to go through the paperwork to make sure somebody else pays it. But if somebody else doesn't pay it, who's going to pay it? Me? I'm not going to pay it. He's not going to pay it.
But
they're your kids. You're going to pay it.
You're right. At that point in time, I went to her and I told her, "Listen, I can't pay you for this point in time. If HRA doesn't approve you, you cannot get paid." But I didn't get a notification.
Watch this. Did she ever tell you, "Hey, if they don't pay you, you're on your own"?
No, she never told me that.
Okay.
She's been carrying my paperwork, my application with her
Because
back
what
and
both
forth.
of you expected would happen is that the government would say, "Okay," which is actually what they eventually said, and that they'd pay retroactively, right? That you expected, because that's how they do it. They pay retroactively. Right?
They pay you for the time that you started.
Yeah, of course. They're not gonna pay you before you started.
But she had all my information, my social, everything going back and forth. And I'm wondering, if she never put the paperwork in, why did you need my stuff?
I think she put the paperwork in. From the paperwork I'm looking at, and I'm trying to piece together a bunch of stuff, it looks like she put the paperwork. It looks like you got approved, but by then she didn't want you. Which you have a right to do. It's just that now what do we do? If you don't say, "Yeah, she was from this date to that date, but only until that date." I mean, I know it's more work for you. You got to fill out a few more papers. But if you're not willing to fill out papers, if somebody else foot your child care bill, you're going to have to foot it.
But I did go to the HRA office after that. They said, if she was not put in as a child care provider, we cannot pay her.
That's why what you should have done is said, "Yes, she is my child care provider, but I've switched to a new one." You should have explained the appropriate way so that the paperwork goes through, but you didn't want to because you wanted the paperwork to go through for the new one already, right? Did you get a new one?
I don't have a new one.
That's it. You just gave up on it because you got kicked out of the WEP program, didn't you? The
I
work
got
experience
sanctioned
program.
and I have to go.
Sanction means you got kicked out and that's it, right? Yeah.
And like I told them, she's no longer my child care provider, but they said, being that, I no longer need her. Like I told her, if I would have switched her in the beginning, she wouldn't have got paid at all. I didn't switch her.
What are you talking about? She didn't get paid at all.
No, I'm saying if I would have switched, they would have paid. Then if I would have switched her and I would have tried to get a new child care provider at that point in time, they wouldn't have paid her then either. They would have just paid the new child care provider, and I didn't do that.
Okay, and what I'm trying to tell you is if you had done everything right, they'd pay any child care provider that you were entitled benefits to at the time that they provided child care. All right, but if they don't, that doesn't mean, unless you can prove to me that she said, I'll work for you for free, which I don't think she did. I don't believe you. You have no proof of, and she denies, then you toma chocolate, paga lo que debe. That's what my grandmother always told me. Order up the hot chocolate, pay the bill. If you're going to drink the hot chocolate, you got to pay the bill. I find no fault with your decision-making as a mother. You're not comfortable, you're not comfortable. But you figure it out with your benefits. That's not her problem. $473 verdict for the plaintiff, and you figure out whether you can now reopen it, explain the circumstances, and get the benefit for it. You understand? All right, that's my judgment.
Thank you.
Well, the defendant terminating the babysitter, no problem. The way you did it, problem. Legally. Step forward a little bit. You understand the judge's ruling here?
Yes, I do.
Any problem with this now?
No, it just has to be doing what has to be done.
What made you so uncomfortable with her all of a sudden? She was doing a great job for you, and then what happened?
My children came home stating that she kept putting her hands on them, she wasn't feeding them. There's too many programs out there in schools to where you can have free lunch. There's no excuse for not feeding a child at all, or putting your hands on them.
Okay. All right, right around the corner, all right? You head right this way. Come on in here. Well, what's your answer to that?
Anybody that knows me in the neighborhood know I don't hit kids. I did pop her once because of the inappropriate way she was in the store.
Pop me on the arm, like you.
I'm gonna pop you on the leg. That's it.
I said on the arm.
Okay, well, I wanted you to feel the effect on the leg, like I popped her on the leg.
You're just trying to move her.
Close her, to keep her legs closed.
So why do you think she terminated you then?
She terminated me because she felt that I should feed her kids, and she didn't want to feed her own kids. Because I fed them for the first 2 weeks.
Okay. Harvey?
Okay, here's a twist for you. You can break any contract as long as you're willing to pay the damages. That's just a fact that you basically, you pay, you play, and you pay. That will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.